Have you ever felt paralyzed by fear in a crucial moment? Maybe it was a big decision, an important conversation, or even a small step outside your comfort zone. Why does fear seem to control our thoughts and hold us back from the life we truly want to live? And most importantly, is there a way to live without being consumed by it? Imagine standing on the edge of a high cliff, looking down at the vast, open space below. Your heart races, your mind fills with doubt, and fear whispers, "What if you fall?" But then, someone beside you steps forward with calm confidence, looking at the same drop with no hesitation. What makes them fearless while you feel frozen? The difference lies not in the situation, but in how the mind processes it. Now think about your daily life. How often do you avoid opportunities, hold back your thoughts, or let fear guide your actions? Whether it's the fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown, it quietly shapes your choices. But here's the truth. Fear is not a permanent state. It's a shadow that disappears when you shine the light of awareness and wisdom upon it. Let's pause here for a moment. What if you had the tools to face fear head-on, no matter the situation? Imagine a life where fear becomes just another emotion, one that you can observe, understand, and release. Today, we will unlock the path to that life through the timeless wisdom of Buddhism. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, a space where ancient teachings meet the realities of modern life. If you're ready to explore how to break free from the grip of fear, you've come to the right place. But before we continue, let me share something with you. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers subscribe. So please, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. It's a small action that helps us bring more valuable insights to you. Now, let's dive deeper. Buddhism teaches us that fear often arises from our attachment to outcomes. We fear failure because we cling to the idea of success. We fear rejection because we crave acceptance. But when we detach from these outcomes and focus on the present moment, fear loses its grip on us. In the teachings of the Buddha, fearlessness begins with understanding. The first step is to observe your fear without judgment. When fear arises, instead of pushing it away or letting it control you, simply ask, "What am I afraid of and why?" This simple question begins to dissolve the power fear holds over you. Buddhist meditation is another powerful tool. It allows you to create space between yourself and your emotions. Through mindfulness, you can watch fear as it comes and goes, just like clouds in the sky. Over time, you realize that fear is temporary, just like every other emotion. The Buddha also emphasized the importance of inner strength. Fearlessness doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting despite it. When you cultivate qualities like patience, wisdom, and compassion, fear no longer feels overwhelming. Finally, remember this. Fear thrives in the unknown, but it shrinks in the light of awareness. The more you understand your mind, the more fearless you become. And this journey starts with small, deliberate steps. Stay with us as we explore how these principles can transform your life in the next parts of this series. Fearlessness is not just a dream. It's a skill you can learn and master. Understanding the roots of fear. In the quiet stillness of a Zen garden, imagine you are sitting peacefully, surrounded by the gentle rustling of leaves. As you close your eyes, you begin to notice the thoughts that arise. One of those thoughts is fear. It is not loud or aggressive. It is more like a whisper in your mind, a shadow that lingers in the background. But where does it come from? What makes this fear take root in your heart? Fear is like a seed planted in the soil of the mind. It starts small, often unnoticed, and over time, it grows. But fear, in its essence, is not something that belongs to you. It is not an inherent part of your being. It is a response, a reaction, shaped by the mind, which itself has been shaped by countless experiences, memories, and beliefs. Fear arises when the mind projects an imagined danger into the future, even when there is no actual threat in the present moment. Let us look closely at how fear arises in the mind. Think of a time when you were about to take a step into the unknown. Maybe it was a decision to change careers, speak your truth, or express your feelings. In that moment, you might have felt a wave of anxiety. That anxiety is fear in disguise. But the root of this fear is not the unknown itself. It is the mind's attachment to the outcome. When the mind is attached to a specific result, It becomes afraid of anything that might stand in the way of that outcome. The Buddha taught that our suffering is caused by attachment and craving. This craving is not limited to material things or desires for success. It also includes our attachment to how things should be, how life must unfold, and the fear that arises when things don't go according to our plans. We are afraid of what we cannot control. But what if we could release that attachment? What if we could live without clinging to outcomes? In that space, fear loses its power. In the Zen tradition, there is a saying, "The mind is like a garden. If you do not tend to it, weeds will grow." Fear is one of those weeds. Left unchecked, it grows and spreads, influencing the way we see the world and make decisions. But just as a gardener pulls out weeds to allow the flowers to bloom, we can pull out fear from our minds through mindfulness and awareness. The root of fear is also linked to our desire for security. As human beings, we crave safety and certainty. This is natural, as it helps us survive. But when this craving turns into a desperate need for control over every situation, fear grows stronger. We begin to fear the unknown because we are not prepared for it, and we fear loss because we are attached to what we have. However, in Buddhist philosophy, there is a different way to approach life. An approach that allows us to embrace uncertainty with an open heart. This way is called non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean indifference or not caring. Rather, it means recognizing that nothing in life is permanent, and that includes our fears. When we understand that fear itself is temporary, like a passing cloud, we can stop giving it power over our lives. Now, imagine this. You are walking through a dense forest. It's quiet, and the path is unclear. You feel a sense of unease. But instead of pushing that fear away, you simply acknowledge it. You do not identify with it. You do not let it define who you are. You realize that fear is just a feeling, a passing sensation. It does not control your actions unless you allow it. You keep walking, step by step, in the direction that feels right. This is the practice of fearlessness. This is the heart of the Buddhist teachings. Fear is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a messenger, showing you where you are attached, where you feel insecure, and where your mind is holding on to things that are not in your control. By understanding fear in this way, we no longer need to resist it. Instead, we can meet it with understanding and compassion. In Buddhism, there is a practice called vipassana, or insight meditation. In this practice, you sit in stillness and observe your thoughts and emotions. When fear arises, you do not try to push it away or analyze it. You simply observe it. You see fear as it is, just another thought, just another feeling. Over time, as you continue this practice, you begin to notice that fear becomes less intense, less overwhelming. You realize that fear cannot exist without your identification with it. Fear also arises from the illusion of separation. We often feel fear when we are disconnected from the present moment, from others, and from ourselves. When we feel isolated or alone, fear appears to be a constant companion. But Buddhism teaches that all beings are interconnected. When you recognize that you are not separate from the world around you, fear loses its grip. You begin to trust in the flow of life, knowing that everything is unfolding as it should. The Buddhist teachings offer a profound perspective on fear. He taught that fear arises from ignorance. Ignorance of our true nature, ignorance of the impermanent nature of all things, and ignorance of the vastness of our potential. When we are unaware of the interconnectedness of all things, we cling to the idea of a separate self, and this sense of separateness breeds fear. But when we awaken to our true nature, when we see that we are not isolated but part of the whole, fear dissolves. In Zen practice, we are encouraged to experience life directly, without the interference of conceptual thinking. When we stop labeling experiences as good or bad, we can see them for what they truly are, experiences that come and go. Fear is just one such experience. It is not permanent, and it does not define us. It is a temporary state that passes when we let go of our attachment to it. As you go through your day, pay attention to when fear arises. Notice how it feels in your body. Is there tightness in your chest? A quickening of your breath? Fear often manifests physically, and by being mindful of these sensations, you can begin to recognize fear as it arises. When you are aware of fear, it loses its ability to control you. You are no longer at the mercy of your thoughts and emotions. Instead, you are the observer, the one who is aware of them. Understanding the roots of fear is the first step in cultivating fearlessness. By recognizing where fear comes from, our attachments, our need for security, and our ignorance of our true nature, we can begin to dissolve it. Fear is not something to fight. It is something to understand, to embrace, and to release. The Buddhist teachings remind us that the path to fearlessness begins with awareness. When we observe our fears without judgment, when we see them for what they truly are, they lose their power over us. As we continue on this journey, we will learn to face fear with open eyes and a peaceful heart. Fear will no longer be a shadow lurking in the corners of our minds, but a fleeting cloud that passes by, leaving the sky clear once again. In the next part of this series, we will explore how to face fear in the present moment, without allowing the past or future to cloud our experience. Until then, remember this: fear is not your enemy. It is a teacher, showing you where you need to grow. Embrace it, learn from it, and let it guide you toward greater wisdom and inner peace. The mind-body connection in fearlessness. In the stillness of the present moment, there is no fear. Fear arises when the mind wanders into the past or the future, creating stories that are not real. The body, too, feels the effects of the mind's fears. The tightness in the chest, the racing heart, the uneasy stomach. These are the physical expressions of fear. But the body can also be a gateway to fearlessness. By connecting with our bodies, we can understand and dissolve fear, one breath at a time. Take a moment to sit comfortably. Close your eyes, if you wish. Pay attention to your breath. Feel it as it enters your nose, travels down your throat, and fills your lungs. Now, notice the sensations in your body. Is there tension anywhere? Does your heart race, your shoulders stiffen, or your stomach clench? This is your body reacting to the mind's thoughts. But you have the power to change this reaction. You are not your fear. Fear often manifests in the body as a response to the mind's interpretations. When you face a situation that triggers fear, whether it's public speaking, meeting new people, or making a big decision, your mind starts to tell you stories. It whispers that you're not good enough, that something will go wrong, or that you'll fail. These thoughts create a physical response in the body. But what if you could intercept these stories before they take hold? The first step is to recognize that the mind and body are deeply connected. One influences the other. When you experience fear in your mind, it shows up in your body. But if you focus on the body, you can shift the mind. How? Through mindfulness and awareness. By focusing on the present moment, you can begin to detach from the stories your mind is telling you. And when you calm your body, your mind follows. One simple practice to connect mind and body is to focus on your breath. The breath is always with you, constant and steady. When fear arises, return to your breath. Feel it move in and out of your body, slow and deep. Imagine that each breath is carrying away the fear, gently dissolving it as it moves through you. With every exhale, release the tension in your body. With every inhale, invite calmness and clarity. You may find that the more you practice this, the less fear will control you. When you are mindful of your body, you create space between yourself and the fear. Instead of reacting to fear, you can observe it. You can notice it without getting caught in it. This creates a sense of freedom. Fear becomes less of a force that dictates your actions, and more of an experience that you can understand and let go. Buddhist teachings speak of the importance of cultivating a strong and balanced body to support a peaceful mind. The body is the vehicle through which you experience life. By caring for it, you can create a foundation for fearlessness. Regular physical activity, such as walking, yoga, or even simple stretching, helps release built-up tension and restores balance. When the body is relaxed, the mind can settle into its natural state of peace. But it's not just physical relaxation that helps with fearlessness. It's also the posture you hold in the world. How you carry yourself can have a profound effect on your mental state. Imagine you are walking into a room filled with strangers. If you enter hunched over, shoulders tight, head down, you are signaling to yourself that you are fearful. But if you stand tall, shoulders back, and head held high, you are sending a message of confidence to your mind. The body influences the mind, and the mind influences the body. This is the power of mindfulness in action. It is the ability to become aware of how fear shows up in your body and to respond with intentionality. When you become aware of your body's reactions, you can choose to relax, breathe deeply, and stand tall. You don't have to let fear control your posture. Instead, you can choose to embody fearlessness. Fear is often linked to tension. When we hold on to fear, we hold on to physical tension. This is why letting go of fear requires releasing tension from the body. Every time you practice mindfulness, you are giving yourself the opportunity to relax more deeply, to let go of the tightness that fear creates. With each mindful breath, you are creating a space of calm within. But how can we maintain this awareness throughout the day, especially when we are faced with challenges or fears? It begins with practice. Start by setting aside time each day to connect with your body. You can practice mindfulness during your morning routine, as you sit to drink your tea, or while walking. Pay attention to how your body feels, and practice releasing any tension you may notice. If fear arises, return to your breath. Return to the body. As you develop this habit, you will begin to notice how your body reacts to different situations. You will become more attuned to the subtle signs of fear in your body. The tightness in your chest, the clenching of your fists, the fluttering in your stomach. When you notice these sensations, you can choose to breathe deeply and release the tension. You will start to recognize that you are not at the mercy of your fear. You can control your response. One of the most powerful ways to create a mind-body connection is through body scans. A body scan is a meditation practice where you mentally check in with each part of your body, starting from your toes and moving up to your head. As you do this, notice any areas of tension, tightness, or discomfort. Simply observe without judgment. And as you breathe, imagine releasing that tension, allowing your body to relax fully. This practice helps you become more aware of your physical state and creates a sense of grounding. When you are grounded in your body, you are less likely to be swept away by the turbulent emotions of fear. You become the calm in the storm, able to observe your fear without becoming consumed by it. The more you practice, the more you will feel a sense of calm and control. Your body will begin to respond differently to fear, and over time, you will find that you are no longer ruled by it. Instead, you will move through life with a quiet confidence, grounded in the present moment. Fear may still arise, but it will no longer have the power to stop you. You will become like a mountain, unshaken by the winds of fear. Overcoming fear through Buddhist meditation. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting quietly, not in the midst of any rush or noise. The air is calm, and the surroundings are peaceful. In this space, there is no pressure. There is nothing pulling you in different directions. You sit there, just as you are, observing your breath. With each inhale, your body fills with life, and with each exhale, you let go of tension. There is no room for fear. This is the power of Buddhist meditation. It's a way to quiet the restless mind, to find stillness within, and in that stillness, discover fearlessness. The Buddha taught that meditation is a path to freedom. When we meditate, we allow ourselves to experience the present moment, free from the weight of past fears or future worries. We live in a world filled with distractions, people, events, worries, and countless thoughts. It's easy to get lost in this noise and forget our true nature. But when we meditate, we bring our focus back to the present. We stop running after things and start turning inward. And here, in the quiet of the mind, we begin to notice something very important. Fear doesn't have a solid foundation. Fear is a creation of the mind, shaped by thoughts and emotions, but it has no real substance. It's just a wave passing through the ocean of our awareness. Buddhist meditation teaches us to observe fear rather than be controlled by it. In the practice of mindfulness meditation, we learn to sit with our feelings without judgment. Instead of trying to push fear away or deny its existence, we simply observe it. We acknowledge that fear is there, and we let it be. When we stop resisting fear, we realize that it has no power over us. It may come and go, but it doesn't define us. One of the most common forms of Buddhist meditation is the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation. In this practice, you focus on your breath, watching each inhale and exhale. As you become more aware of your breath, you also become more aware of your thoughts and emotions. When fear arises, you notice it. You feel it in your body, perhaps in the tightening of your chest or the fluttering in your stomach. But instead of reacting to it, you simply observe. You watch it with curiosity, without attachment. As you continue to observe, something amazing happens. Fear begins to lose its hold on you. You begin to see that fear is just a temporary visitor. It's not permanent. It comes and it goes, just like every other emotion. The more you meditate, the more you understand that you are not your fear. You are the observer, the one who watches, and in this space of observation, fear cannot control you. In Buddhist teachings, fear is often described as the result of ignorance, the ignorance of our true nature. We fear because we believe in the illusion of separation. We believe we are separate from others, separate from the world, and separate from our own potential. This sense of separation creates fear. But when we meditate, we begin to break down these illusions. We begin to see that we are not separate from the world, that we are not alone in our experiences, and that fear has no foundation in reality. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a practice called metta, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice helps to cultivate feelings of love, compassion, and kindness, not just toward others, but toward ourselves as well. When we are kind to ourselves, when we offer ourselves compassion, fear cannot thrive. Fear often arises from self-judgment, from the belief that we are not enough, or that we are not worthy. But when we practice metta, we begin to let go of these judgments and embrace ourselves as we are. We learn to be gentle with ourselves, and in doing so, we create a safe space where fear has no place to grow. Meditation also teaches us to let go of attachment. In Buddhism, attachment is seen as the root of suffering. We are attached to outcomes, to expectations, to the way things should be. This attachment fuels our fears. We fear losing what we love, or not getting what we desire. But through meditation, we learn to let go of these attachments. We learn that life is ever-changing, and that holding on to things only causes pain. When we let go, we free ourselves from the cycle of fear and suffering. As we meditate, we begin to see the impermanence of everything. Nothing lasts forever, not even our fears. Our fears are like clouds in the sky. Sometimes they are dark and heavy, but eventually they pass. When we see this truth clearly, we no longer give in to fear. We understand that fear is just a passing moment, and that we have the strength to face it without being overwhelmed. Another powerful aspect of Buddhist meditation is the practice of zazen, or seated meditation. In zazen, you sit with your back straight, your hands resting gently in your lap, and you focus on your breath. This practice helps to calm the mind and cultivate a sense of inner stillness. When we sit in this way, we begin to experience a deep sense of peace. And it is from this place of peace that we can face our fears. Fear cannot exist in stillness. When we are truly present with ourselves, when we are grounded in the moment, fear simply fades away. The Buddha taught that fear is not something to be fought or defeated. Fear is simply a part of the human experience. What we can do is change our relationship with fear. Instead of running from it or trying to control it, we learn to coexist with it. We acknowledge it, observe it, and let it pass. And in doing so, we transform fear into an opportunity for growth. Through Buddhist meditation, we begin to develop a deep sense of inner strength. Fear no longer holds the power to paralyze us. We begin to trust ourselves, to trust our ability to face whatever challenges arise. Meditation helps us to cultivate a sense of equanimity, a balanced, calm mind that remains steady in the face of adversity. As you continue your meditation practice, you will notice a shift in your life. You will find that you are less reactive to fear and more able to respond with clarity and wisdom. The more you practice, the more fearless you become. Meditation is not a quick fix, but a lifelong practice. The more you commit to it, the more you will experience its transformative power. Buddhist meditation offers us the tools to face fear head-on. By observing fear without judgment, letting go of attachment, and cultivating compassion, we can break free from the grip of fear. Meditation helps us to see that fear is not something to be afraid of, but something to be understood. And once we understand it, we can let it go. In the next parts of this series, we will explore more ways to cultivate fearlessness in your life. But remember, the foundation of all fearlessness lies in meditation. Through meditation, you can learn to face any fear that comes your way with calm, clarity, and courage. The power to be fearless is within you. It is simply waiting to be awakened. Cultivating courage with mindful practices. In the quiet of the morning, before the world awakens, there is a moment of stillness. It is here, in this peaceful pause, that we can begin to understand courage. Courage is not a loud, boisterous thing. It does not shout for attention or demand admiration. True courage is soft, gentle, and steady. It comes from within, and it is nurtured through mindfulness. You may wonder, what does courage have to do with fearlessness? Fear is not the enemy. It is the mind that allows fear to control it. Courage is the ability to face fear without being consumed by it. It is the ability to move forward even when doubt creeps in, even when the path ahead seems unclear. In Buddhism, courage is deeply connected to the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness, or sati, is the art of being fully present in each moment. It is the practice of observing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. When fear arises, as it inevitably will, mindfulness allows us to step back and witness it without being overwhelmed by it. Fear becomes just another experience, like any other thought or emotion, and it no longer controls us. Let's take a moment to think about a situation where you felt fear. Perhaps it was before a difficult conversation, a challenge at work, or even a moment in your personal life that felt uncertain. How did you react? Did you avoid the situation? Did you try to push the fear away? In most cases, when we resist fear, it only grows stronger. We become more anxious, more uncertain, and less able to act with clarity. But when we accept fear as it is, it loses its grip on us. Courage, then, is not about eliminating fear but about learning to coexist with it. Mindfulness helps us do this. When we are mindful, we can observe the fear without attaching ourselves to it. We can acknowledge its presence without letting it dictate our actions. One of the simplest ways to cultivate courage through mindfulness is by practicing deep breathing. When fear arises, our breath often becomes shallow and quick. By consciously slowing down our breath, we signal to our body that we are safe. The breath becomes our anchor, a steady rhythm that grounds us in the present moment. As we breathe deeply, we remind ourselves that we are not our fear. We are not the stories we tell ourselves about what might happen. We are simply here, breathing, experiencing life as it is. In addition to breathing, another powerful mindfulness practice is the body scan. This practice involves slowly moving your attention through different parts of the body, noticing any tension, discomfort, or areas where fear might be held. When we are fearful, we often tighten our muscles or hold our breath. The body scan helps us release this tension and return to a state of calm. As we become more aware of the physical sensations of fear, we can learn to release them with each exhale, allowing ourselves to move through fear with greater ease. Another way mindfulness cultivates courage is through the practice of loving-kindness meditation, or metta. In this practice, we send out loving, kind thoughts to ourselves and others. We begin by wishing ourselves well. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be at ease. Then we extend these wishes to others, including those we may have conflicts with or feel fear towards. As we practice loving kindness, we begin to soften our hearts. Fear is often born from a sense of separation, from ourselves, from others, or from the world around us. When we practice loving kindness, we begin to see that we are all interconnected. We are not alone in our fears, and by offering love and compassion to ourselves and others, we can face our fears with greater courage. Courage also grows through acceptance. In Buddhism, acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up or surrendering to fear. It means acknowledging that fear is a natural part of life, just like joy, sadness, or anger. When we accept fear as it is, we no longer fight against it. Instead, we allow it to be there, and in doing so, we release the power it has over us. Acceptance creates space. It creates the space to feel fear, to observe it, and to choose how we respond. This acceptance is deeply tied to the Buddhist principle of impermanence, or anicca. All things, including fear, are temporary. Fear may feel overwhelming in the moment, but it will not last forever. When we recognize that fear is impermanent, we begin to see it as a passing experience, rather than something that defines us. Just as the weather changes, so too do our emotional states. Fear, like the clouds, will eventually pass. As we cultivate mindfulness, we begin to see fear in a new light. Instead of running from it or trying to avoid it, we learn to face it. We learn to look fear in the eye and say, "I see you, and I am not afraid." We learn that we are stronger than our fears, that we have the ability to act with clarity and courage even in the face of uncertainty. The Buddha taught that suffering is an inherent part of life, but that through mindfulness and understanding, we can transform our suffering into wisdom. Courage is born from this wisdom. It is the wisdom to know that we are not our fears. We are not our doubts. We are not the stories we tell ourselves about what might go wrong. We are simply the observer, the witness, the one who is aware. And when we are aware, we can act with clarity, compassion, and courage. Another important practice that nurtures courage is the cultivation of equanimity, or upekkha. Equanimity is the ability to remain calm and balanced, no matter what life throws our way. It is the ability to stay grounded, even when fear arises. When we practice equanimity, we do not react to fear with panic or anxiety. Instead, we observe it with a calm mind, knowing that we have the inner strength to face whatever comes our way. Equanimity is not indifference. It is not a cold, detached state. It is a deep understanding that all experiences, whether pleasant or unpleasant, are impermanent. Fear may arise, but it will not last forever. And in the meantime, we have the power to choose how we respond. We can choose to respond with mindfulness, compassion, and courage. As we cultivate courage through mindfulness, we also begin to trust ourselves more deeply. We begin to trust that we have the wisdom to handle whatever comes our way. We trust that we are capable of facing challenges with grace and clarity. This trust is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, practice, and patience. But as we continue to practice mindfulness, we begin to see that we are far more capable than we ever imagined. In conclusion, cultivating courage with mindful practices is not about eliminating fear or pretending it doesn't exist. It is about learning to live with fear in a way that empowers us, rather than paralyzes us. Through mindfulness, we can observe fear without attachment, breathe through it, and act with clarity. We can accept fear as a natural part of life and know that it will pass. And through loving kindness and equanimity, we can cultivate the inner strength to face any challenge with courage. Courage, like fear, is a passing experience. And when we learn to navigate fear with mindfulness, we discover that we have the courage to face whatever life presents to us. Letting go of attachments to conquer fear. In the quiet moments of our lives, when we are still and listen to our minds, we often hear a gentle voice whispering, "What if?" It is a voice filled with doubt, filled with fear. It questions our decisions, our worth, and our actions. And in these moments, fear gains strength. But there is a secret, a powerful one, that has been passed down through the centuries by the Buddha, the power of letting go. Fear often arises because we are attached. We are attached to outcomes, to how things should be, to what people think of us, and to the idea of success or failure. This attachment forms the very foundation of our fear. We fear loss, we fear rejection, we fear failure. But all of this arises because we are holding on too tightly. We are trying to control things that are beyond our control. And in doing so, we create a world where fear dominates. But what happens when we let go? What happens when we release our grasp on the things that bind us? Imagine for a moment that you are holding on to a rope tightly with all your might. You are afraid to let go because you fear what might happen if you do. But what if the moment you release the rope, you realize you were never truly holding on to it in the first place? What if you were just caught in an illusion of control, and in letting go, you find peace? This is what Buddhism teaches us about fear and attachment. The Buddha spoke of non-attachment, not the kind of detachment where we stop caring, but the kind where we stop clinging to things that are temporary, to things that we cannot control. When we stop attaching ourselves to outcomes, to other people's opinions, and to fleeting moments of success or failure, we can begin to live freely. Letting go of attachment doesn't mean we stop caring or working toward our goals. It means we free ourselves from the anxiety and fear that come from trying to control every little detail. When we are attached, we are bound. We are limited by our need to hold on, and our world becomes smaller. But when we let go, we become open. We allow life to flow through us without resistance, and we find that we are no longer afraid. The practice of letting go begins with the simple recognition that everything is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. Our thoughts, our feelings, our successes and failures, they all come and go. The more we try to hold on to them, the more they slip through our fingers. This is the nature of life. And in understanding this, we can release the need to control. We can relax into the flow of life, knowing that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. Buddhism teaches us that the root of suffering is attachment. We attach ourselves to things, people, and ideas, and when they change or disappear, we feel pain. But when we let go of attachment, we open ourselves to the beauty of change. We learn to accept life as it is, without fear, without clinging to how we want it to be. Mindfulness is a key practice in letting go. By becoming mindful of our thoughts and emotions, we can observe them without judgment. When fear arises, we don't need to react to it. We can simply notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass. Just like a cloud in the sky, fear is fleeting. It may seem big and dark for a moment, but it will soon drift away if we don't hold on to it. Let's take a moment to reflect on what attachment might look like in your life. Do you find yourself worrying about what others think of you? Are you constantly striving for success, for recognition, for approval? These attachments often cause us stress and anxiety, and they feed our fears. We fear rejection because we attach our worth to the approval of others. We fear failure because we attach our identity to success. But when we let go of these attachments, we realize that our worth is not defined by others' opinions, and our identity is not tied to our accomplishments. We are free to simply be. One of the most powerful tools in Buddhism to release attachment is meditation. Meditation allows us to step back from our thoughts and observe them without getting caught up in them. In meditation, we learn that thoughts are just thoughts. They are not who we are. When fear arises during meditation, we can notice it, acknowledge it, and let it go. We do not need to act on it or let it control us. We can simply return to our breath, to the present moment. Through meditation, we also come to understand the impermanence of our experiences. Feelings of fear and anxiety may come and go, but they do not define us. The more we practice letting go in meditation, the more we begin to do so in our everyday lives. We learn to accept the ebb and flow of life, knowing that everything is temporary and that nothing is worth clinging to. But how do we let go in the midst of life's challenges? How do we remain fearless when we face difficult situations, when the world seems uncertain? The answer lies in our ability to stay present. When we are truly present, we are not caught up in the past or the future. We are not trapped in what has happened or what might happen. We are simply here, now, experiencing the moment as it is. And in this presence, we find the courage to act, the strength to face whatever comes our way. In the midst of fear, we can remind ourselves to breathe, to center ourselves in the present moment. We can let go of the need for everything to be perfect, the need for everything to be under control. We can trust that, no matter what happens, we have the strength within us to handle it. And this is where true fearlessness arises, not from the absence of fear, but from the willingness to face fear with an open heart, without attachment to the outcome. There are also powerful teachings in Buddhism about compassion and how it relates to letting go of attachment. When we cultivate compassion for ourselves and others, we create space for fear to dissolve. Compassion helps us realize that we are all interconnected, that we are all on this journey together. When we let go of the fear of being judged, the fear of failure, and the fear of not being enough, we make room for love and understanding. And in this space, fear cannot take hold. The path to letting go is not always easy. It requires patience, self-awareness, and practice. But with each step, we move closer to freedom. We move closer to a life where fear no longer controls us, where we can live with courage and clarity. So, when fear arises in your life, ask yourself, what am I attached to? What am I holding on to that is causing this fear? And then, gently, let it go. Release the need for control. Release the need for certainty and trust in the flow of life. Let go, and watch fear lose its power over you. In the next part, we will explore how mindfulness can help you stay grounded and fearless in any situation. But for now, remember that the key to conquering fear is simple. Let go and be free. The role of compassion in building fearlessness. Imagine you are walking through a forest. The trees are tall, their leaves rustling softly in the wind. You see a path ahead, but it's narrow and filled with thick vines. You feel unsure, a little afraid of what might be hidden along the way. As you step forward, the sun breaks through the canopy, casting warm light on the path. With every step, you realize that the path is not as dangerous as it first seemed. You're not walking alone. The sun, the trees, and the ground beneath you are all part of this journey. This is the power of compassion in overcoming fear. Compassion is not just kindness toward others. It is a deep understanding and care for yourself. When you cultivate compassion, fear loses its ability to control you because you begin to see yourself and others through the lens of love, not judgment. Fear often arises from the belief that we are separate, that we are alone in facing life's challenges. But compassion teaches us that we are never alone. We are part of something greater, something beautiful and interconnected. In Buddhism, compassion is one of the core teachings. The Buddha spoke of karuna, the Sanskrit word for compassion, as a force that can transform not only our relationships with others, but also how we relate to ourselves. When we practice compassion, we let go of harsh self-judgment and embrace our imperfections. Fear is often born from the stories we tell ourselves, stories of failure, rejection, or not being good enough. Compassion allows us to rewrite those stories. Instead of seeing our mistakes as weaknesses, we begin to see them as opportunities for growth. Fear makes us tighten our grip on life. It makes us believe that we must control everything around us in order to feel safe. But true fearlessness comes when we open our hearts and trust the flow of life. Compassion teaches us to let go of control. When we are compassionate, we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, knowing that even in our vulnerability, we are safe. We don't need to hide or protect ourselves from the world. We can face it with an open heart, knowing that we are strong enough to handle whatever comes our way. The practice of compassion isn't just about giving to others, it's also about receiving with grace. We are often too focused on what we can do for others that we forget to allow ourselves to receive love, support, and kindness. Fear keeps us locked in a mindset of scarcity, as if there is not enough love or goodness in the world for us to receive. But compassion teaches us that love is infinite. There is always more than enough to go around, and by receiving love, we allow it to flow freely within us. To build fearlessness, we must first cultivate a deep sense of compassion toward ourselves. Imagine the way you would treat a dear friend who is struggling. You would listen with patience, offer kind words, and be there for them without judgment. Now, ask yourself, can you treat yourself the same way? Too often, we are our own harshest critics. We focus on our flaws and shortcomings, telling ourselves that we're not good enough or that we'll never succeed. But when we practice compassion, we see our mistakes with understanding, not criticism. We recognize that we are doing the best we can, and that's enough. This shift in perspective is powerful. Compassion allows us to see beyond our fears and into the heart of who we really are. It lets us recognize that fear doesn't define us. Fear is simply an emotion that comes and goes, but it's not the essence of who we are. When we are compassionate, we remember that our true nature is one of peace, love, and wisdom. Fear may appear, but it cannot take away the light within us. Compassion also transforms how we see others. Instead of seeing people as threats or obstacles, we begin to see them as fellow travelers on the same journey. We realize that everyone faces their own fears and challenges, and that we are all connected in this shared experience of being human. This recognition creates a bond of empathy. We stop seeing others as competitors or enemies, and start seeing them as fellow souls who deserve our kindness and understanding. When we practice compassion toward others, we naturally begin to feel more fearless. Instead of being afraid of people's judgment, rejection, or disapproval, we learn to trust in our relationships and in our ability to connect with others from a place of love. This deep sense of compassion strengthens us, making us resilient in the face of fear. When we act from a place of compassion, fear becomes less about what might go wrong and more about how we can contribute to the well-being of others. One powerful way to practice compassion is through the act of loving-kindness meditation, or metta. In this practice, You begin by sending kind thoughts and wishes to yourself. You recognize your own humanity and offer yourself love, peace, and joy. Then, you expand this circle of compassion to others, to loved ones, to friends, to strangers, and even to those you may have conflicts with. As you send out these wishes for others, you realize that the more love and kindness you give, the more fear begins to dissolve. There is no room for fear when your heart is full of love and compassion. This practice, done regularly, creates a shift in your consciousness. You begin to see the world not as a place of danger, but as a place of connection. Fearlessness is born from the realization that we are all part of the same fabric of life. We are not isolated individuals struggling to survive. We are part of a larger whole, and together, we can face whatever challenges come our way. Compassion also helps us in moments of difficulty. When fear arises, whether it's about a future decision, an uncertain outcome, or a personal challenge, compassion teaches us to be gentle with ourselves. Instead of getting overwhelmed by fear or anxiety, we learn to breathe deeply and offer ourselves a moment of peace. We remind ourselves that it's okay to feel afraid, but that fear does not have to control us. Compassion helps us to acknowledge our fear without judgment and move through it with grace. Through the practice of compassion, we begin to see that fear is not something to be avoided, but something to be understood. It's a natural human emotion, but it doesn't have to dictate our actions. Compassion allows us to respond to fear with wisdom, patience, and love. It teaches us that fear is simply a part of the journey, not the end of it. Ultimately, compassion leads to fearlessness by helping us release our attachment to the outcome. When we let go of the need for control, when we open our hearts to others and to ourselves, fear loses its power. Compassion is the key to living a life of courage, love, and inner peace. As we continue to nurture compassion in our lives, we find that fear no longer holds us back. Instead, it becomes a teacher, showing us where we still need to grow, where we can offer more love, and how we can become more fearless with each passing day. Remember, fear is only as powerful as the attention we give it. When we shift our focus to compassion, fear loses its grip. Compassion is the antidote to fear, the balm that heals our hearts and frees us from the chains that bind us. Through the simple, yet profound practice of compassion, we unlock the door to fearlessness, transforming negative emotions into inner strength. In every life, negative emotions arise. They come in many forms: anger, sadness, frustration, jealousy, or fear. These emotions are as natural as breathing, but like clouds that pass through the sky, they don't need to remain. The secret is in how we deal with them. Instead of letting them control us, we have the power to transform these negative emotions into something greater, into inner strength. This is a practice taught by the Buddha, and it's a key step on the path to fearlessness. Imagine your mind as a calm, clear lake. On a still day, the water reflects the sky perfectly, but when a stone is thrown in, the surface becomes disturbed. Waves ripple out, and the reflection is no longer clear. Negative emotions are like those stones. They disturb the calm of your mind, causing confusion and a loss of clarity. But just as the water settles after the stone sinks, so too can the mind regain its peace once the emotions pass. The challenge is not in the emotion itself, but in how we respond to it. Most people react to anger with more anger, to sadness with despair. The Buddhist teachings invite us to respond with mindfulness. When you feel anger rising, instead of letting it control you, pause. Take a deep breath. Notice the anger without judgment. Just watch it as if you are an observer, standing outside of yourself. When you give yourself the space to simply observe, without reacting, you begin to separate yourself from the emotion. You are no longer the anger. You are the one who experiences it. This is the first step in transforming it. Negative emotions are like fire. If you feed them, they grow. But if you don't add fuel, they will burn themselves out. The key to transformation lies in understanding the impermanent nature of all emotions. Anger is not forever. Sadness is not permanent. They are temporary visitors. The Buddha taught that everything in life is impermanent, including our feelings. When you fully embrace this truth, you can begin to let go of the need to hold on to negative emotions. But how do you transform them into strength? One powerful practice is to change your perspective. Anger, for example, can be a doorway to understanding your deeper needs. Are you angry because you feel misunderstood? Or maybe you feel powerless? By asking these questions, you turn anger into self-awareness. Instead of reacting with more anger, you use it as a tool for insight. This allows you to approach the situation with wisdom instead of more conflict. Similarly, sadness can teach us compassion. When we feel sadness, we are reminded of the fragility of life, the impermanence of everything. This can inspire deep compassion for ourselves and others. When we understand the root of our sadness, we can use it to connect more deeply with those around us. Rather than closing ourselves off, we open up to the shared human experience. Buddhism also teaches that negative emotions, like fear and jealousy, often arise from our attachments. We fear losing what we love, and we feel jealousy when we compare ourselves to others. These emotions come from the belief that our happiness is dependent on external things, on possessions, achievements, or relationships. But when we learn to let go of attachments, we free ourselves from the power these emotions have over us. In Buddhist practice, one of the most transformative tools is meditation. Through meditation, we learn to observe our emotions with equanimity. We sit with them, without judgment, allowing them to arise and fall away naturally. This creates space between us and our emotions, so we are no longer controlled by them. Instead of reacting impulsively, we respond with awareness and compassion. Through this practice, we begin to realize that negative emotions are not enemies. They are simply messengers. They tell us something important about our inner world, about our beliefs and our desires. When we listen to them, instead of pushing them away, we learn valuable lessons. Anger teaches us about injustice. Sadness reminds us of the impermanence of life. Fear signals areas where we need to grow. The Buddha also taught the practice of loving kindness, metta, which is the antidote to negative emotions like anger and hatred. When we cultivate love and kindness in our hearts, we create a shield of positivity that transforms the negative. Try sending loving thoughts to yourself, then to others, friends, strangers, even those you may have conflict with. Over time, these feelings of love replace negative emotions, creating a powerful force of inner strength. Another practice that can help transform negative emotions is gratitude. In times of sadness or frustration, take a moment to reflect on what you are grateful for. When we focus on the positive aspects of our lives, our minds shift away from negativity. Gratitude can turn a day filled with despair into one filled with hope and possibility. But transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience and dedication. The Buddha said, "Just as a flower does not pick and choose the bees that come to it, do not reject your emotions. Embrace them all with equanimity." Over time, with consistent practice, you will begin to see the results. Negative emotions will no longer control you. Instead, they will be your teachers, guiding you toward greater wisdom, compassion, and strength. Another key element of transforming negative emotions is mindfulness. This practice encourages you to stay present with your emotions without being swept away by them. When you feel a surge of anger or sadness, instead of becoming lost in it, simply acknowledge it. "Ah, this is anger," or "this is sadness." By labeling the emotion, you create distance from it. You become the observer, not the participant. This simple act of mindfulness helps break the cycle of reactivity and allows you to choose how to respond. As you practice mindfulness, you begin to cultivate a sense of spaciousness in your mind. This space allows you to see emotions for what they truly are: temporary, fleeting, and not a reflection of your true self. You are not your anger, your fear, or your sadness. These emotions are passing clouds in the sky of your mind. And just as the sky remains unchanged no matter what clouds pass through it, your true nature remains untouched by the ebb and flow of emotions. The Buddha also taught the practice of equanimity, which is the ability to remain balanced and calm no matter what arises. Equanimity is not indifference. It is a deep acceptance of all experiences, both pleasant and unpleasant. When we cultivate equanimity, we learn to respond to life with wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Negative emotions no longer have the power to knock us off course. By transforming negative emotions into sources of strength, we become more resilient. Life becomes a series of lessons rather than challenges to overcome. Each emotion, no matter how difficult, is an opportunity to learn and grow. The more we practice, the more we discover that we are not helpless in the face of emotions. We have the power to choose how we respond, and in doing so, we transform them into the very fuel that drives our growth. In the end, transforming negative emotions is about reclaiming your power. It's about no longer letting emotions dictate your actions. Instead, you become the master of your mind, using every experience, no matter how painful or challenging, as a stepping stone to greater strength, wisdom, and compassion. The path to fearlessness is not about avoiding negative emotions, but about learning to face them with courage and mindfulness. Each step you take in transforming your emotions brings you closer to a life of true freedom, where fear no longer holds you back. As you continue this practice, remember, your emotions do not define you. You are the one who defines your response to them, and in that, you will find true inner strength. Conclusion: embracing a fearless life. You have traveled a long way, haven't you? From understanding the roots of fear, learning to observe it with mindfulness, to transforming it into something that no longer controls you. This journey has been nothing short of powerful. And now, as we come to the final part, it is time to reflect on everything you've learned. Take a moment and ask yourself, what has changed in your life since you started exploring fearlessness? Perhaps you've noticed that fear no longer paralyzes you in the way it once did. Maybe you've begun to act more boldly, to step into the unknown with a quiet sense of confidence. Or perhaps you've simply learned to be at peace with fear, allowing it to come and go like passing clouds, without allowing it to define who you are. This is the essence of fearlessness, the ability to live fully, to embrace life's challenges, and to take each step with courage, even when you don't know what lies ahead. Fear will always be a part of life, but it does not need to be the driving force. And this, dear friend, is where Buddhism offers us its most profound wisdom. In the teachings of the Buddha, fearlessness is not the absence of fear, but the wisdom to act despite it. Fear is simply an emotion, a passing wave in the ocean of your mind. When you begin to see fear as a wave, you understand that you are not the wave. You are the vast ocean beneath it. The wave rises, crests, and falls, but the ocean remains steady, calm, and vast. This is how fearlessness is cultivated. Buddhist teachings often emphasize the power of non-attachment. You have learned that fear arises from attachment to an outcome, to a specific way things should be, or to the idea of safety. But when you let go of these attachments, fear begins to lose its power over you. The more you allow yourself to be present with what is, without clinging to an imagined future, the less fearful you will be. The path to fearlessness is also one of self-compassion. In your practice, you may have encountered moments of doubt, moments when you questioned whether you could truly live without fear. But remember, fearlessness is not about perfection. It is about being gentle with yourself. It's about acknowledging your fears, not as weaknesses, but as part of your human experience. You have learned to meet fear with understanding, not judgment. Another important lesson is the practice of mindfulness. As you sit in stillness, observing the rise and fall of your breath, you realize that fear is simply another thought or feeling passing through your mind. When you become mindful of your thoughts, you see that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which they arise and fade. This is the profound shift that comes from Buddhist meditation, seeing things as they truly are. Through mindfulness, you've learned to stay present with whatever is happening in the moment, without the need to run from it or resist it. This presence allows you to act with clarity, to respond with wisdom, and to move forward with courage. Whether you are faced with a challenge at work, in relationships, or within yourself, you now know that fear is just one possibility among many. You can choose how to respond. It is also important to remember that fearlessness is a practice, not a one-time achievement. Every day, you will encounter moments when fear rises again. But now, you have the tools to meet it with calmness and understanding. You can observe it, inquire into it, and let it pass. This is the true power of fearlessness, the ability to face life with an open heart and mind, knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. Throughout this series, you have learned that fearlessness is not about eliminating fear. It's about transforming your relationship with it. Fear becomes less of a barrier and more of a signal, an opportunity to grow, to expand, and to embrace life in all its uncertainty. You have learned to cultivate courage by practicing mindfulness, by letting go of attachments, and by nurturing compassion for yourself and others. And now, as you conclude this journey, remember, fear is not something to avoid or escape from. It is something to understand, to embrace, and to move through. Life is full of unknowns, but it is also full of possibilities. When you stop allowing fear to dictate your actions, you free yourself to live fully, to experience life's beauty and challenges with a clear and open mind. So, what does it mean to live a fearless life? It means having the courage to take the first step, even when you don't know where it will lead. It means embracing uncertainty with the confidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. It means seeing fear not as an enemy, but as a guide, something that points you towards what is important. In the end, fearlessness is not a destination. It is a way of being. It is a quality that you carry with you, regardless of the circumstances. Whether you are facing a difficult conversation, a personal challenge, or simply navigating the ups and downs of life, fearlessness is the foundation that supports you. You have learned that the key to fearlessness is not to fight against fear, but to transform your relationship with it. When you no longer see fear as something to be feared, you unlock the freedom to live authentically, to pursue your dreams, and to walk your path with confidence. As you move forward in life, remember the teachings of the Buddha. Fear is a natural part of the human experience, but it does not have to control you. You have the power to change your relationship with fear. Through mindfulness, self-compassion, and the wisdom of non-attachment, you can embrace each moment with courage, knowing that fear is just a passing cloud in the sky of your mind. As you leave this journey of fearlessness, take with you this simple but powerful truth. You are not your fear. You are the vast, unshaken awareness in which fear arises and falls. And when you embrace that truth, you are truly free. Thank you for being part of this journey. May you continue to walk the path of fearlessness, one mindful step at a time. And remember, no matter what challenges life brings, you are always capable of facing them with courage and grace. You have the wisdom and strength within you to live a life free from fear. If this journey has helped you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven, so we can continue bringing you valuable insights. Together, we can continue growing, learning, and living fearlessly. Thank you for being with us, and may your journey be filled with peace, courage, and freedom.